Welcome to the YouTube channel of Government Degree College, Jedcharla. So, as a part of providing free education to the students of its college, this college is developing certain videos in all subjects of BA, BCom, BSc. Today, we are going to discuss a zoology lesson, that is flight adaptations in birds. Okay, friends, let us know about the flight adaptations in birds. So birds are very important and very interesting animals. They are the bipedal, that means they walk on two legs, but the very strange feature is that they fly with two wings. So their aerial mode of life is really interesting to know about. So birds were evolved during the Jurassic period from theropod dinosaurs. Dinosaurs have given rise to the evolution of birds. But the Jurassic birds were not at all flying. The Jurassic birds were simply walking on the ground. Only a few Jurassic birds were flying. Why? The Jurassic birds were heavy. They didn't have the flight adaptations. But during Cretaceous period of Mesozoic era, during Cretaceous periods, birds get modernized. Modernized means they started adapting to flight. They have developed several adaptations. Almost every part in the body of a bird got adapted for the aerial mode of life. Okay, as they have evolved during Jurassic period, they modernized in Cretaceous period, and so it is called the Cenozoic era. That means the next era after Mesozoic era is said to be the golden age of birds. As I mentioned, birds are feathered bipedal vertebrates and they are having high temperature. Actually, their body temperature is very high. That's their special character. And because of that, they can maintain high metabolic rate. They are always energetic. They are always energetic. And with so many special characters, earlier by T.H. Huxley, birds were described as the glorified reptiles. They are the glorified reptiles. They are more advanced than the reptiles, though they have evolved from the theropod dinosaur reptiles, but a lot of characters are there evolved for flying purpose in the case of birds. So T.H. Huxley described birds as glorified reptiles, and because they can create miracles while flying in air. That means their flight is almost perfectly balanced. They can utilize all the principles what are there in nature to travel in air. That's why J. Jed Young described birds as the masters of air. So birds are the masters of air and they are also considered as the glorified reptiles. What is the study of birds? The study of birds is called ornithology. And whoever is showing interest in the study of birds is called an ornithologist. Ornithologists generally take photographs. Ornithologists study the anatomy, the physiology, the behavior, and different aspects of birds. And in India, we had a very famous ornithologist. So none other than Salim Ali. Salim Ali described and developed a lot of methods to identify the birds in India and Pakistan. So he wrote many books. So he identified many species in India. So he is considered as the famous ornithologist in India. So far in the world, 8,600 species of birds were discovered and described. Birds are very special, and you see there are about 8,600 species. So in these 8,600 species, 20,000 to 30,000 subspecies were also identified. You take for example a crow, okay, Indian crow. You can see in the picture here Corvus splendens, a crow. This crow has got for three subspecies: Corvus splendens splendens, Corvus splendens protegatus, Corvus splendens insolens. What is a subspecies? Subspecies is a small group of population which is inhabiting in a very special area, having developed very small features other than the maternal population. So in such a way, every group of population or every group of species, every species is having divided into subspecies, because the birds can go disperse to different diversified areas. More subspecies are there. So 8,600 species are there, but 30,000 subspecies are recognized or identified in birds. So which is the largest bird? Of course, ostrich is the largest bird, Struthiocamelus, and the smallest bird is Millisuga helene. That is the smallest bird. Okay, right. Let's go to the next slide. Friends, you just observe, here there are some fossil records of birds, and here there are very strange birds that cannot fly. Okay, so how the ancestry or the evolution pattern of birds was discovered? So it was discovered when a fossil was observed. When a fossil that is called Archaeopteryx was observed in a slate quarry in Germany, so which is giving all the details of that fossil, and that fossil is showing a very long tail like that of a reptile, and all other modifications like those of birds. So by observing that fossil bird, scientists established that the birds have evolved from reptiles, and such a bird which we find in Germany quarry is Archaeopteryx. And friends, you also observe here, this is Ichthyornis, and this is Hesperornis, Ichthyornis, and Archaeopteryx are the fossil birds. And all the other birds what you are observing are flightless birds. Flightless birds have lost their ability to fly. Once they were flying birds, once they were having all the adaptations for flight, but because they are inhabiting in a safe area where enemies are not found, they have lost their ability to fly, and they are become very heavy, and in such a way they became a very special category called flightless bird. So flightless birds are not different ones. They are once upon a time they were flying birds, but they have gradually lost their ability to fly. And if you can observe this photograph in this slide, that is called Ctenomys rhynchodon. This is called Ctenomys rhynchodon. This Ctenomys rhynchodon is actually a flightless bird. But if you see the anatomical, physiological characters, morphological characters also, so it is exhibiting most of the characters of flying birds, but it is flightless bird. Most of the scientists describe that it is the connecting link between flying birds and flightless birds. Today's lesson or today's topic is the discussion of the flight adaptations in birds. So let us discuss the flight adaptations. Birds are highly specialized, and they are highly specialized for aerial mode of life. They can fly 20,000 feet above the surface of Earth, and also they can make a journey of 11,000 kilometers or 11,000 miles. As a stretch, they can take a 11,000 mile journey. So it is possible only when they are efficient in flying. So they are very well efficient in flying. They can make a very efficient flight because almost every part of the body of bird is modified for flying purpose. That is the very important feature. Not a single part. Most of the parts, or almost all parts of the body, all systems of the body in birds get acquainted or get modified get adapted for the purpose of flight. The very important phenomenon for flying in air is to reduce the body weight. If the bird is heavier, it cannot fly in air. It is very difficult, or it is much difficult. So the fundamental thing what is needed for making a flight is to reduce the body weight and become light. Okay, so the body weight is because of bones. So the more the number of bones, the more the heavier the body will be. So what has happened here is most of the bones of birds got fused with one another. Because of the fusion of bones, number of bones got reduced. Because the number of bones got reduced, bird body became lightweight. This is one of the reasons. Okay, of course, Each bone is also a light-weighted pneumatic bone. But what is very important phenomenon is cutting down the number of bones is a very, very important character, and furthermore each bone is very light-weighted because it is filled with air spaces. So most of the bones got fused with one another to reduce the number of bones, and flying birds have to move their wings up and down. So when their wings are moving up and down, lot of energy they have to spare. So instead of spending much energy, they developed a spring-like structure. This spring-like structure is called Farcula, and this is because of fusion of two collarbones. The two collarbones fused to become a Farcula. This Farcula arrangement, spring-like arrangement, reduced the utilization of a lot of energy for the flight. So they are energy efficient. Okay, when they are flying, they can utilize less amount of energy. And moreover, the arrangement of muscles, if you can observe in a body of the bird, are totally different from that of any other animal. And the arrangement of muscles in the chest region, that means the pectoralis muscles, and in the hip region and in the leg regions are totally different. So these kind of adaptations, a lot of such kind of adaptations are there in birds. Let's see. The hands of birds, if you can see the hands of the birds, are provided with only 3 digits. The 4th digit and the 5th digit have completely lost. So any bird to its wing, the only 3 digits are there. And in the case of legs, only 4 toes are there. The 5th toe got reduced. Because the reduction here is having a significance in reducing the weight of the body. That is the significance. It's not a disadvantage. Say for example, in the case of human being, if one finger is cut, it is a disadvantage, yes. But in the case of birds, they have lost their fingers to reduce the body weight. Okay, so presence of feathers and having the fused bones and having high metabolism in body to always produce more energy and having a telescopic vision. These are the very, very important characters that are suiting for flight mode of living. Okay, so the flight adaptations of the birds are mainly categorized for our convenience into 3 headings. That is, morphological volant adaptations. Flight adaptations are called volant adaptations. So morphological volant adaptations, anatomical volant adaptations, and also the physiological adaptations. So under these 3 headings, we need to understand what modifications have occurred in birds for making them fly in air. Now, let's see the first heading, morphological volant adaptations in birds. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 headings are there here. So one is related to the shape of the body. The second one is the feathers. In what way the feathers are helping making the animal fly. And organs, what organs are responsible for bringing flight. And how is the neck an advantageous during the flight or for other purposes. And how when wings are modified, forelimbs are modified into wings, how they can walk on ground, that is very important, and how they can hold the twigs perching mechanism, and what is the role of the tail. We are going to discuss one by one now, from now. Okay, body contour. Contour means outline. How is the body outline in a bird? It's very easy to recognize. Any bird is having a spindle-shaped body. The spindle-shaped body, which is called streamline body or fusiform body, is very, very important because aerodynamic body. You can see an aeroplane, or you can see a jet plane, or you can see any object that is flying in air. All those are having the contour or the shape is streamlined, or what is that called fusiform shape. And this kind of fusiform shape can reduce the friction so that it can move in air with very much reduced friction. Okay, so the body shape is all the time, for any bird which is flying, the body shape is always spindle shaped. Okay, and the other very important modification in a morphological aspect is that the wings are situated almost on top of the thorax. Because the wings are highly positioned, they have much area to cover. Okay, so for the purpose of downstroking, they have much scope. So for that purpose, they can generate the lift. This is very, very important. If wings are not highly placed, if the wings are placed at the lower part of the thorax, it's very, very difficult because they have got a very short span for making a flight or for creating certain thrust. So this is very important. So wings are placed highly upon the thorax. That is very important modification. And one thing very, very important is that, so when something is moving in air, how the inner parts are arranged is a very, very important phenomenon. Let me give you one example. When you are carrying certain things in a bag, okay, so if the things what are there in the bag are differently weighed, then what you do, heavier structures or heavier parts or heavier objects you place underneath, you place at the bottom, lighter parts you place on the top, so that you can carry the bag very easily in air. Okay, so if you are dragging it on ground, it doesn't matter, but when you are carrying in air, heavier organs must be placed in the lower side and lighter organs must be placed in the upper side. And if you dissect the frog and observe the internal anatomy, you will observe this very good principle suitable to that particular bird. Lighter organs like lungs and air sacs are situated on the dorsal side. And you see heavier organs like muscles, sternum, digestive system, and all the systems are situated at the bottom part. Okay, upper part and bottom part are classified with the lighter organs and heavier organs. And this kind of arrangement is very, very important for making a kind of balance when bird is moving in air. So this is a very, very important. So these are the principles, natural principles birds are very neatly utilizing for making a flight. Okay, and when lot of modifications have happened in the body, so how to balance the body, that's very, very important. Where is the center of gravity? The center of gravity is also much lower, not in the middle of the body. So if this is the bird, the center of the gravity is almost all at the base. So this is called low center of gravity. Because of low center of gravity, when a bird is resting on something, so its balance can be maintained perfectly. So these are certain physical rules that birds have utilized to make their flight and to live in the aerial mode of life. So what are the next modifications? So morphological modifications, that is feathers. How the feathers are helping for making a bird fly. Okay, feathers are the unique characters. Feathers are present only exclusively in birds. So wherever feather is there, that animal is belonging to class Aves. So this is the unique feature of birds. They are very smooth and their fitting is also very, very close to the body. Very close to the body. As our hair are not very close, but they are very, very close to the body and they are backwardly directed. So all the feathers are arranged backwardly directed. Okay, so when they are moving forward, so they reduce much of friction. So for reducing the friction to the minimum, such kind of arrangement is there. Not only reducing the friction, they can also protect the body from abnormal temperatures of outside surroundings. When they are flying in air, you see a lot of sunshade is there. The body will not get heated up because feathers protect. They can form a covering. Okay, so they protect from abnormal temperatures. And one very important thing is that when feathers are covering the body, in between the feathers and body there is what is that called, a blanket of air. Between the feathers and body wall and feathers, there is a blanket of air is there. This blanket of air is much useful for useful for the character called buoyancy. So for the purpose of buoyancy, such a kind of air blanket is useful. Okay. Now, feathers are also useful for insulating. So say you take for example, so if lot of heat is dissipating outside, the metabolism is drastically affected in the winter season. Okay, when they are flying at high regions, lot of surroundings is very cool there, very colder surroundings are there. So to prevent the loss of heat from the body, feathers are giving a lot of protection. Okay, then feathers of wings, these are called remiges. Feathers are of different types. I will show here. This is you look at here, this is the quill feather. The quill feathers are present either in the wings or in the tail. And the second category, this is called contour feathers. Contour feathers are present all over, they spread all over the body surface. And these are called down feathers. They are present only in the hatchlings, small chicklings. And some phyloplumes are there like that. Okay, so different. These quill feathers are two types: remiges, which are present in the wing, retrices, which are present in tail. You just imagine the tail of a peacock, very long phyloplumes are there. So like that, different kinds of feathers are there, and the wing feathers, remiges, are expanding to a greater area for making a downstroke very effectively. Okay, next morphological modifications, the organs of flight. What are the organs of flight? No doubt they are wings. Wings are the organs of flight. Okay, forelimbs of a bird modified in the form of wings. Okay, they are the powerful propelling organs because they push the water backwards so that the bird is jumping forward. Birds can fly with a great pace. Okay, so what is that? Alpine swift, Apus melba. Swift, the fastest bird, fastest flying bird, that is. So the wings are the powerful propelling organs. So remiges will increase the surface area in a wing so that they can strike more air for generating an upward lift. The shape of the wing is a very important phenomenon that one has to understand. Wing is not flat like this. Wing is not flat like this. Wing is a bit bent like this. Okay, the upper area is convex and the lower surface is convex, concave lower surface, convex upper surface. The convex upper surface, when moving in air, will reduce the pressure. Will reduce the pressure, and convex surface will reduce the pressure, and concave surface will increase the air pressure. When air pressure is high in the lower side and low in the upper side, automatically lift is generated. This is called a kind of Bernoulli principle like that. So automatically when a bird is flying in air, automatically it is placed at higher position because of the shapes of the wings. Okay, so wings sometimes are very broad. Such kind of broad wings are useful for making a sudden lift, as you see in the case of pigeons. And wings may be very long. So such long wings are always useful for making a long journey. And if the wings are pointed, then it is useful for making a short curves like flycatchers. As the flycatchers are moving, swifting here and there like this. So shape of the wing is a very important thing. Upper surface is convex to create low pressure, and inner surface, lower surface, is concave to create high pressure. Automatically a lift is generated, and the posterior part of the wing is reducing the turbulence. So much disturbance is reduced by the posterior part of the wing so that they can drive upward and forwards. Okay, and what is the next morphological evolvent adaptations? Neck. What is the importance of neck? Friends, you just understand, legs are there behind, and the forelimbs are modified into wings, not useful for catching anything. Okay, Legs are useful only for walking, and forelimbs are useful for only flying. But some organs are needed for catching something. Okay, so for some organs are needed for moving very close to food. So otherwise what happens, we take the food very close to the mouth, but our hands are modified into wings. You just imagine, we bring our mouth close to food. So to bring the mouth very close to food or very close to any small stick that is useful for making a nest or nest building purpose, so neck must be having good mobility. So the neck of any bird, you just observe, the neck is quite long and flexible. The long and flexible neck will compensate the loss of forelimbs or modification of forelimbs into wings. So directly mouth can reach the food because of a flexible neck. The neck is the only structure. It is having the cervical vertebra, but the cervical vertebra are the only vertebra which are not fused. All other vertebrae in the vertebral column got fused with one another to reduce the number of the bones and to increase the rigidity of the vertebral column. But the neck vertebra are the only vertebrae in birds that are not at all fused, and moreover they are heterocylous vertebrae. Okay, as the neck is okay like that. The mouth, if the mouth is round and like this, they may not be able to catch. A kind of forceps like structure is needed. So the two jaws are drawn forward to make a forceps like structure, because a forceps like structure is essential for taking the food or doing any other work. So such a kind of modification is very, very important for any animal whose forelimbs are not doing their original function. Let's go to the other morphological adaptation, that is bipedal locomotion. The wings are modified for the purpose of forelimbs are modified for the purpose of flight. When that has happened, the hind limbs have taken the role of walking. Okay, they are standing on hind limbs. But when hind limbs are behind, in human being, hind limbs are no doubt behind, but their vertebral column is straight, erected like this, so that no problem occurred. But in birds, vertebral column is horizontal. When vertebral column is horizontal and hind limbs are there very behind, it is very difficult to maintain the equilibrium. That's why the hind limbs are drawn forward into the central position. Okay, so these hind limbs are drawn forward because of several modifications occurred in osteology. You see the backbone, all the vertebrae got fused to pull the pelvic girdle towards the center of the body, so that the bird can stand and maintain what is that called center of gravity and equilibrium there on terrestrial medium or on the top of the twigs like that. Hind limbs are very stout. They are very powerful. They are very stout. They are provided with certain claws to kill the prey, to catch the prey. And not only for that, the hind limbs are useful for walking. Hind limbs are useful for running, and hind limbs are useful for swimming also, because their digits are having certain web, hairy web is skin web is there. So with that web they can swim in water, they can run on land, they can walk on land. And the very, very important thing what the birds are doing with their hind limbs is perching. Okay, hind limbs are useful for the digits, the toes we can call. Digit is the scientific name, toe is the common name. So their toes are automatically move around a twig, close round the twig. So this mechanism is called perching mechanism. So in such a way the hind limbs are modified because the bird wants to fly in the air. You just observe this slide. In this slide you can observe how the toes of the bird are able to close round the twig. You just see, this is the hind limb, the femur, all these things are there, and what are drawn in black color are the tendons. Now you see the leg is straight. When leg is straight, tendon is normally stretched like this. When the leg is bent like this, when does the leg generally bend? During sitting or during resting position. So whenever the leg is bent like this, automatically a stretch force is created on tendons. The tendons will pull the toes. When tendons are pulling the toes will be moving like this. They close around a twig. As long as, you see, you understand this is very important. As long as the leg is bent like this, the toes are found in closed position. Okay, when the leg becomes straight, these toes release the twig. So this kind of permanent locking mechanism is called perching. Okay, when bird rests on a twig of a tree, the toes close round the twig automatically, because what has happened, the leg got folded. So legs are bent. As a result of that, the flexing tendons, flexing means contracting, the flexing tendons, okay, what happens, a kind of a force is generated over the toes. So the toes will close. Such a kind of mechanism is there, such a kind of physical arrangement is there. Okay, so when a bird sits on a twig with folding legs, perching happens, and as long as perching is there, the bird can safely sleep in that position without having any fear of falling down. Okay, so this is a very, very important phenomenon. So an example that you might have observed, that if any bird dies because of electrocution on electric wire, it is still hanging down the electricity in that, because all of a sudden it died and the perching locking mechanism is locked forever like that. Okay, and the last morphological adaptations what we are discussing now is tail. The tail, which is very, very small. Actually, the tail doesn't project outside. The tail is absent. Only tail bones are present. Caudal vertebrae are there. The caudal vertebrae are plough-shaped, plough. These plough-shaped caudal vertebrae are called pygostyle. That is called pygostyle. It will support the tail feathers. The tail feathers are called rectrices. Rectrices. These rectrices, because it is having a kind of muscles are there, those rectrices can expand a fan-like, in a fan-like shape. When bird is moving very fast in air, where is the brake? Okay, where is the brake? The brake is with the tail. Okay, and of course with the wings. And tail acts as a rudder. You know very well, an aeroplane is also having at nearby the tail region a rudder, red color rudder. This rudder will steer the aeroplane. That means it will change the direction. It will change the direction. It is useful for lifting, and it is useful for coming down. Okay, and it is useful for turning left and right, up and down. The tail is playing a very, very, very important role. So dear students, you just observe the tail, how a tail is working when a bird coming down and when a bird is going up. So you just observe, you will understand the phenomenon of rudderness of tail. Okay, and tail is sometimes useful to catch hold the twig also. So that is perching purpose also, that is useful. So friends, we have learnt about the morphological adaptations like feathers, like arrangement of organs, wings, tail, and all those things. And the second very important heading is, we need to understand the anatomical modifications. What are the anatomical modifications or adaptations? Only two anatomical modifications are helping aerial mode of life. They are nothing but flight muscles and endoskeleton changes. Friends, you observe, flight muscles are very, very special muscles. Flight muscles are very, very special muscles. So they are greatly developed. Flight muscles are greatly developed in a flying bird. They control the action of wing. The wings are moving down and up. Okay, downstroke and upstroke. Downstrokes and upstrokes are controlled by flight muscles. These flight muscles are attached to the broad surface of sternum. The broad surface of sternum is called keel, carina. So it provides broad area, and to this area all the flight muscles are attached, and it is pulling. This is sternum, this is limb. So between the limb, that means forelimb and sternum, these muscles are situated. There are three types of flight muscles: pectoralis major, pectoralis minor, and coracobrachialis. I have drawn a diagram here. You just see the longest one here. This is humerus and this is keel. This is forelimb, wing, and this is sternum, breastbone. Between the breastbone and forelimb, these muscles are arranged. Okay, the longest one, which is I have drawn in green color, is called pectoralis major, and the next smaller one in blue color is called pectoralis minor, and a very small flight muscle, a pair of side, this left side and right side, left wing and right wing, that is called coracobrachialis. So pectoralis major, pectoralis minor, and coracobrachialis are the three very important flight muscles. Of course, if what is that, chicken, in chicken eating, most of the persons prefer breastbone muscles only. Okay, right. Next, pectoralis major, it is useful for making a powerful downstroke, because downstroke is very important. Upstroke is not so important, because upstroke is important because there is a spring called Farcula, it will be doing that. So much energy is needed for downstroke. That's why pectoralis major is large. And pectoralis minor with the help of Farcula, it lifts the air upwards. And then coracobrachialis, a small muscle is there, red in color, you see. This small muscle is stretched to the skin. So it is almost all touching the skin of this region. This skin is called patagium. So when the wings are lifted up, the skin has to be stretched. Then only the wing can be lifted upwards very easily. So for making the patagia stretched, the coracobrachialis is useful. Friends, I hope you have understood. There are three sets of muscles, three pairs of muscles: pectoralis major, pectoralis minor, coracobrachialis. Pectoralis major, downstroke; pectoralis minor, upstroke; and coracobrachialis for stretching the patagium skin, for making allowing the wing to be lifted out above. Right. I have drawn another diagram to depict or to describe the osteology, modifications or adaptations for allowing the animal to fly in air. Okay, well, let's see the endoskeleton adaptations. The skeletal framework you just observe here is very strong. Next slide I'll go to. Okay, the skeletal framework. Just observe the skeletal framework. The skeletal framework is very stout and very strong. Okay, all bones are there, but these bones are provided with air sacs. So they are called pneumatic bones. They are lightweight because inside the bone there is no bone marrow. Because bone marrow means blood. Blood means hemoglobin. Hemoglobin means iron. Iron means heavy. Bones are not the sites of production of blood. In our body, bone marrow is the production site of blood. But here, something bursa is there, where from the RBCs are produced. Bone marrow is totally absent. Bones are filled with air spaces. Bones are lightweighted, and the bones are called pneumatic bones. Okay, the framework is very rigid, as I mentioned. This articulation is very rigid. It is because of fusion of bones with one another. Fusion of bones. You just observe a carpenter. Carpenter is going to attach several frames, wood frames like this. If wood frames are not, if loosely attached, the framework will not be so rigid. So proper fixing of that, fusion of that must occur. Here, most of the bones got fused with one another. That's the important phenomenon we have already discussed. Okay, let us observe the skull. The skull is having no sutures at all, no lines of fusion at all, completely fused. Okay, beak is a very special structure, nothing but the extension of two jaws. Teeth are absent. In modern birds, teeth are absent to reduce the weight. If teeth are absent, which will churn the food? No. Churning the food doesn't occur in buccal cavity. Almost all they swallow the food as it is. And in the stomach region, in the crop region, there is a gizzard to grind the food material. That is also an advantage in digestive system. Okay, right. The bones are lightweight. There is no bone marrow. Framework is very rigid, and there are no teeth. Sutureless skull. And friends, you just observe this is the vertebral column. Neck vertebrae, as I mentioned earlier, are not at all fused. They are heterocellous. And then the other vertebrae, thoracic vertebrae. Last thoracic, all lumbar, all sacral, and anterior 5 caudal vertebrae. These many vertebrae fused to form a very important structure called synsacrum. Presence of synsacrum is very important because it provides the area for the attachment of muscles. It makes the vertebral column very short, and it makes the vertebral column very stout, very rigid, so that when bird is flying in air, it provides total support to all parts of the body. All the parts of the body, if they are moving zigzag, there is no proper support, bird cannot fly. So bird is efficiently flying in air only because of a very rigid vertebral column. A very rigid vertebral column is because of one very important structure called synsacrum. This is synsacrum. Okay, and then you see the sternum, the breastbone. Sternum, the breastbone expanded like this to provide more area for the attachment of muscles, especially the flight muscles. And this is sternum. Sternum is commonly called keel. This is called keel. And a small tail is seen as a fluff bone, that is called pygostyle. Okay, that will also support certain muscles. And then a very important happening has occurred here. This is the two clavicles. If you can observe the two clavicles got fused with one another to create what is that called a V-shaped bone. This V-shaped bone is called Farcula. In the pectoral girdle, the two clavicles got fused with one another. The fusion of clavicles created a V-shaped bone. V-shaped bone is otherwise known as wishbone or merry thought bone, or this bone is a very important bone because it acts like a spring. This spring action facilitating the easy movement of the wings. Okay, once the wings have subjected to a downstroke, because of spring action, automatically they are lifted upwards. So Farcula is a very important flight adaptation. Okay, synsacrum is also a very important adaptation. 14 vertebrae are there, and pygostyle is a small bone that is also helping in aerial mode of life. Friends, I have drawn a diagram here to describe you about the Farcula. Okay, the Farcula. You see, this is one clavicle, this is another clavicle. The two clavicles attached here to create a kind of V-shaped spring-like structure. When humerus, that means shoulder bone. This is bone of upper limb, bone of forelimb. When it is moving like this, so this spring will generate a kind of spring action, making the flying of movement of the wings is quite easy. Okay, this is Farcula, and next this is humerus, and this is coracoid. You just observe coracoid. Coracoid is pillar-like. So when coracoid in the pectoral girdle is like a pillar, what is very important thing to understand here is when wings are performing downstroke, lot of pressure is generated. This pressure they have to accept. So for accepting the pressure during the downstroke, coracoid is playing a very important role. Okay, coracoid is pillar-like, Farcula is V-shaped, and a saber-like another scapula is there, which is not there in this diagram, and keel is very broad to provide the area of attachment to the flight muscles. Okay, now there are ribs, and ribs are double-headed, tuberculum and capitulum, and only to protect the internal viscera. Now, so let us see the last heading of adaptations, that is physiological adaptations. The physiological adaptations are maintaining homeothermy. Homeothermy is a very important phenomenon. The homeothermy means maintaining a constant temperature inside. inner part inside constant temperature is maintained, and that too higher temperatures are maintained. So the birds can maintain 40 degrees to 45 degrees centigrade temperature. That's really very high when compared to all other bodies of mammals, etc. So maintaining heat, that means more temperature, that means a relevant temperature, is a very important thing. So when a bird is flying in colder areas, such a kind of hot internal nature is always helpful. So what are the physiological adaptations in digestive system? In digestive system, enzymes are produced readily whenever the food comes. No gap, no delay. So that whatever food that is taken inside will quickly be digested. When digested food is absorbed and the food that is not digested is thrown to the large intestine, and in the large intestine rectum is very small, it doesn't accommodate more fecus. So immediately it will quickly eliminate whatever the indigested food is there. So a very fast digestion occurs, that is the physiological adaptation. And then respiratory system is very important, because energy is needed. For energy, oxygen is needed. For taking oxygen, respiratory system is needed. In respiratory system, lungs are inelastic, non-elastic actually. So when it is flying in air, if lungs are moving, contracting and expanding, then it is very difficult to maintain certain pressures. So it is very difficult. That's why lungs are inelastic. And what are very important structures here to maintain double respiration is, double aeration is, birds in their respiratory system are having air sacs. There are 9 air sacs, 4 pairs of air sacs and 1 unpaired air sac. Okay, anterior thoracic air sacs, posterior thoracic air sacs, clavicular air sacs, abdominal air sacs, and interclavicular unpaired air sac. So all these air sacs, during inhalation of air, inspiration of air, the air goes into the lungs and also go into the air sac. Okay, the fresh air comes into the body, first into the lungs, and most of the fresh air, some of the fresh air goes into the air sac and stored there. When the air in the lungs is utilized and is going outside, air sac fresh air will come into the lungs. Oh, friends, just understand, lungs are always filled with fresh air. In our body, our lungs are filled with fresh air during inspiration, and during expiration there is already used air is there. But in the case of birds, during inspiration there is fresh air, and during expiration also fresh air. Where from the fresh air is coming into the lungs during expiration? From the air sacs. So always double aeration is there. Aeration during inspiration time, aeration during expiration time. So that is very important adaptation of birds. Right. And certain adaptations are there in circulatory system, because when compared to the body size and heart size, relatively heart size is large in birds to pump efficiently blood into the parts. And amount of hemoglobin is also more amount is recorded when compared to the body size. When compared to the body size, more amount of hemoglobin, and size of the heart is also large. Okay, coming to the excretory system, excretory system is very efficient, because there are certain functions for kidneys. The first function is to maintain osmosis, and the second function is to eliminate the unwanted materials. Maintaining osmosis is very important. Maintaining water level and salt level, and this kind of efficient reabsorption is going on in the kidneys of birds, because of a kind of structure in the nephrons that is called Henle's loop. Loop of Henle is there, so that is efficiently reabsorbing the water. They don't want to eliminate a small drop of water in the form of urine. Entire water is reabsorbed. So they can prepare an excretory material which is not at all required water for elimination. That material is called uric acid. They are uricotelic, because uric acid doesn't dissolve in water. It doesn't require water for its elimination. So that's why birds have adapted to excrete uric acid, hence they are called uricotelic. conservation of water is very, very important. Okay, so months together birds can fly. So if they have to stop there and they have to take water, it's impossible. So that's why they are conserving water. Okay, they are ureotelic. And one very important thing is that they don't have urinary bladder. In digestive system, gallbladder is absent, and in excretory system, urinary bladder is absent. Because urinary bladder is needed for storing of liquid urine. Where is the liquid urine? And if urinary bladder is there unnecessarily, it will create balance problems, weight problems. That's why urinary bladder is lost, and urine is not at all what is that called, liquid. It is semi-solid. It is semi-solid. Okay. Now in nervous system, what are the physiological adaptations? Let us observe. In nervous system, sense of olfaction is completely lost. Sense of sight is very well developed, telescopic vision. And then the cerebellum is the organ of brain, a part of brain which is maintaining the balance. That is very highly developed. Highly developed cerebellum in birds. We'll see in birds. Okay, 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Of course, they are normal. They are not at all adaptations. And in the reproductive system, compared to reptiles, birds are laying less number of eggs. Why? The reason is they are having only one set of ovary, oviduct and other things. Actually, every organ, every system is provided with double organs, 2 lungs, okay, like that. So 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, like that. But reproductive system, instead of having 2 ovaries, because ovaries are enlarged during reproductive period and they'll become heavier. Okay, only the left ovary is present in birds, in female birds. Right ovary is rudimentary. Right ovary is having a very, very small oviduct. That's all. Right ovary is completely lost. Only rudimentary ovary is seen on right side. Only in the left side, left ovary, left oviduct are very well developed, only to reduce the weight of the body. Okay, friends. So these are all the adaptations that we have seen in the body of a bird. Okay. Morphological adaptations, anatomical adaptations, and physiological adaptations. Morphological adaptations are related to the form of the body, shape of the body, and external parts of the body. And anatomical are mostly internal, related to the musculoskeletal system, especially the muscles and the endoskeleton. And physiological adaptations are morely related to the metabolism of digestion, respiration, circulation, excretion, and the thermoregulation, osmoregulation, etc. So these 3 are the very important headings to understand the modifications or the adaptations of the birds. And to develop this video, I have taken a complete help from the Telugu Academy book, textbook, which is suggested for the BSc 3rd semester students. Okay, I acknowledge and I pay thanks to the Telugu Academy publishers for allowing me to use these particular photographs or drawings. Thank you, friends. Thank you for watching.